My name is Maurice Southworth, in case we have some guests who haven't been at one of our meetings before. I am the chair of the Fruit Street Local Historic District. And with me, I have Joe Carper, who is a resident of Fruit Street, Bonnie Sontag, who's been on the commission for a few years, quite a few years, since the conception of it, I believe. And also Kevin. Kevin also has been on since, Kevin Wallace has been on since the inception of the commission. So first of all, I'd like to go through, as you can see on the screen, the agenda for tonight. We have a couple of applications for a certificate of appropriateness, which we'll go through first, and that's the new business. One is at 16 Fruit Street and one is for 24 Prospect Street. And then we'll go through the rest. I believe we do more business. We'll see if there's correspondence, see if we've got any since the minutes were published. And then we'll do a general business, look at the approval, and then we'll finish with some business that we are completing on ourselves and everything. So to start the meeting, I'd like to start with the application from 16 Fruit Street. And Andrew, are you going to show, I know in the past you have shown some of the...
Sure. Yeah, just for clarity for the public as well, I'll be showing, this is Andy Port, I'm the planning director. I will be showing any of the visuals that might be relevant for the application during the discussion, and also making sure that from the audience that the applicants can be unmuted and speak. And if there's any public comment taken, that's handled as well. So I'm here to help the chair.
Yep, thank you, Andrew. Sorry, I should have introduced you as well. So thanks for your help running the meeting tonight and showing us the documentation. So 16 Fruit Street, I believe Carmen can't make it tonight. She had something come up, so she won't be here. But Jody, I believe you are here. And what I'm just going to go through right now is basically go through the application itself for 16 Fruit Street. And I believe you had a paragraph online, submitted online. I don't know, Andrew, if you can find that or not. I don't know how easy that is to show. Maybe it's not.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have several different things to show. So there's some photographs and there's the plan, and I can show any of those as you like.
Yeah, I think this was in the actual filled out on the application itself. There was a paragraph explaining what both
Sure.
Carmen and Jody would like to propose.
Sure, I'll pull that up.
Okay, thanks. Okay, there we go. Thank you. So the application for 16 Fruit Street is regarding the driveway. And right now it's a dirt driveway, and Carmen and Jody would like to use bricks, brick the driveway. And so they're requesting confirmation that they can use these natural pine hole permeable clay brick pavers. They have photographs showing the color. It will match the existing brick and structure. And these are clay brick pavers, so they are a natural material. And the reasons listed in the paragraph, the length of the driveway, short curving, and some of the patio being below the grade of the driveway, makes it seems better to use this type of brick for water drainage. And I believe, Andy, you have several colors. You've got a photo of the bricks.
Sure,
and a photo of the driveway.
Sure.
So those three bricks are the clay bricks we're talking about on the right. Obviously, we would not use, I assume we're not using all three colors. I'll clarify that with Jody. And that we would use probably the darkest one that matches the brick. The brick that's shown at the top of the photo, I believe, is in front of the Mint building. And then there's one standard brick shown to the left. And then, Andy, if you could show us the driveway itself and how it's located regarding the Mint and so you can see the Mint in the background of the driveway with the two cars. I believe the little brick patio area you saw in the previous photo is in front of the Mint. And the building 1618 Fruit Street is on the right there. And right now, as we mentioned, it's a gravel driveway. So Jody, I believe Jody is online tonight. Would you like to make some comments regarding your application, please?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Jody.
Okay. Yes, so the bricks that you just saw, the three put together are they're called a pine hole brick. And yes, they are clay. And our understanding is the only difference is the little knobs you see on the sides of the bricks. So it actually just leaves a little extra space in between the bricking to allow for permeability so that the water can drain through, since we have that pitch issue trying to get it to drain off. So that is the purpose of using that brick. I'm not sure on the coloring. I guess we kind of thought the variation of the coloring, we see a lot of variation in the sidewalk and the Mint building. So that's not really been discussed very much or decided upon. We were just trying to see if we'll get approval for this type of brick. So.
And I probably misspoke. Yeah, sorry, Jody.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So I believe what we're asking for is a permission to do a permeable setting, if you will. I believe the brick should comply with the materials that are typically acceptable, unless I'm misunderstanding something. So I'm not really sure on that.
Right. That's good. That's helpful.
And just to be clear, we haven't actually hired anybody. We've spoken with 2 different engineers in terms of pitch and things like that, but we're not 100% certain at this point that we will go with the permeable. We are very strongly leaning that way. So I guess by the end of this meeting, we'll hear what you will allow and won't allow in terms of the Pine Hall, but we'd also like to make sure that everybody understands that if we decide to go with that traditional, either, is it called Town Hall or City Hall brick,
Boston City Hall, yeah.
So that of course would also be acceptable, just so we don't have to come back to another meeting if we decide to go that way.
Okay. Thank
Does
you,
that make
Jody.
sense?
That does make sense. Thank you, Jody.
Okay. Yeah.
So now I believe we asked for some public comments. By asking for public comments, I would like every speaker please to state their name and their address so Bonnie can make a note of that. If anybody would like to ask a question or state their thoughts, please now go ahead.
And the first person we have that's raised their hand is Tara Cedarholm. Tara, if you'd like to unmute, you should be able to address the commission.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Tara.
Great. So Tara Cedarholm, I'm at 20 Fruit Street. So I'm right next door to Jody and Carmen. And so just a couple things. One, I wanted to say that, you know, I'm really in support of them going forward with a driveway that is brick or brick appearance. And I don't want my comments to sound like I'm not supportive of it, particularly, you know, I think anything that they do there will be an improvement over the current situation. So, but I would like to clarify a couple of things. One is I spent quite a bit of time on the website of this manufacturer and looking at these bricks. And so I just want to clarify that they're not bricks. They are in fact a paver. So it is a natural clay material, but it is a paver, which is not something that is technically allowed by the ordinance. But I do believe that when the ordinance was written, we were not, that whoever was writing it was not anticipating that pavers would have come to a place where they have come now, which is a lot more kind of aesthetically acceptable. So these may be totally fine. But one thing I did notice in reading about them is that they require an edging material. And that edging material is either going to be metal or plastic. And I would hope that the board would ask to see that edging material to understand where that edging material has to be. Does it have to be just at the edges? Does it have to be throughout? Because it's a pretty large driveway. You know, when it's installed, does it have to be throughout? I would also agree that I think that the color variation would be great, because I think if you go with a single color, it's going to have a much more sort of commercial appearance. And I think color variation would help to soften that a little bit. And if Jody mentioned, you know, if there's still a possibility of considering the city brick. And if it's possible, I know that there's a situation with the slope there. That might not be possible, but obviously it would be preferable to do city brick. But if that can't be done, I would certainly be supportive of this Pine Hall paver. And I just wanted to ask a point of order question, and that's not about this driveway, but these meetings are now run on Zoom. So it means that, if we have like a question or something we want to ask the commission that isn't related to one of the agenda items, I'm not really sure how we do that, because last time there was no sort of time in which we do that. Like in a face-to-face meeting, we can do that. So I wondered if the commission might, at the end of the meeting, open up for people to sort of raise other issues, or are we only supposed to do that by writing to you in advance?
In my personal view is we should be able to talk to you at the meeting. Andrew, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, generally speaking, if it's in a matter that couldn't have been reasonably anticipated by the chair, that could be discussed, in brief. If it's a more substantive matter, it would make sense to add it to the next upcoming agenda. But generally speaking, if the chair wants to entertain a discussion of a miscellaneous item that wasn't recently known would be requested in advance, we could take that up at the end of the meeting or your.
Right.
Well.
Okay, so that would be great. And then just one more thing, I happened to come into my driveway just as the rain was pouring down, and Jody and Carmen have, really put these bricks out for us to look at for a few weeks, which has been really terrific. And I will note that in addition to the little lugs on the side, which I think help to make them the water go through and solve their sort of slope problem, is that they do seem to be permeable. It was interesting that the bricks were all wet, like the city bricks on the sidewalk were wet, and these bricks look totally dry. So anyway, I think the bricks themselves have some permeability. So those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Tara.
And I do have one other set of hands raised, Melinda Cheston. Melinda, if you'd like to unmute, you should be able to address the commission.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. I assume you can hear me?
Yes, we can, Melinda.
Great. Hi. I just wanted to chime in that I support this project, and I think it's great whether they're able to do a traditional brick driveway or one of the Pine Hall pavers. That would be great. And I also support the idea of color variation. That's it. Thanks.
Oh, Melinda, before you go,
Yeah.
could you please give us your address?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's 10 Fruit Street.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melinda.
And seeing no other hands raised, Chair.
All right, thank you, Andrew. So now the applicant can speak again. So if
Am I still unmuted?
yes, I'm trying to see if I think so. Yes. So
Well, if you can hear
yeah,
her.
Jody. Yeah, Jody. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, guys. It's been a long day. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for their comments. And I too am in support of the color variation, as Carmen is as well.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure on what else you would like me to add, other than I'm happy to get Kara's question of the, and the board will probably do this as well, the specifics on the edging materials, where and how and what. And what else do you need from me, Morris?
I think that's it. I think, I think we know
Mark,
exactly what it is. Well,
Will we ask questions?
yes, I think that comes next.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I was just going to say, I think we've got a good overview of what you want to do. We know exactly. I thank Tara and Melinda for their thoughts. Tara, you brought up some things I did not know. And I think I misspoke about one color. I totally agree. It should be multicolored, like the natural brick. So I probably misspoke there. So yes, Joe, we can go ahead now and make comments or ask questions.
Yeah, and again, Jody, don't take this as disapproval, but I just wanted to ask, how did you happen to not choose the Boston City pavers first? And the reason I ask that is because we just went through last summer a hardscaping project in our driveway, and we substituted old concrete covered pavers that the previous owners had put in with Boston City Hall pavers. And there's a long run of property. We're also butting right up against our house, yet the hardscape firm was able to slope the surface such that water ran away from the house and into the street. So it didn't really present any problem at all. In fact, it improved the drainage surrounding our house. So I think in and of itself, I don't think that you should necessarily write off the possibility of using the other real brick pavers if cost is no concern.
In fact, I actually, thanks for your questions, Joe. I'm going to try to address them. So in fact, I think the Pine Hall is actually more expensive. So this is actually not a cost issue. The reason that we began questioning a lot of it was because we had several people come out to look at the driveway, and several of them simply said, oh, this can't be done. You just simply, with the 90 feet that you have, you just do not, with the stone wall and the curbing, you just do not have the pitch that it takes. So that's when we began paying attention to that and searching elsewhere. So I spoke to two different engineers, one who came out on site, one who, Morris, was your recommendation, Stephen Sawyer.
Yep, responded.
Yeah, we spoke on the phone, and we had a lengthy conversation, and he said, you know, both applications he thought would be okay. He was concerned about the pitch. He wasn't sure we had enough. So he mentioned a pitch of 5 inches. Other people had mentioned more than that. We only have 4 with the curbing as it exists. So anyway, that's where it got a little dicey, Joe. And that's when we started looking at the permeables just to solve that issue. So if we do decide to go with the natural brick and away from the permeable, we will just pitch as much as we have, and also pitch it ever so slightly away from the house, and just hope for the best. So, I mean, I think the worst that happens is that it might, the standing water might cause the brick to buckle over time, or do the things that we don't really want it to do. So that's where we started to steer away from the traditional. If that helps at all, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it does. And again, I don't want to, say that you need to go with the other. I mean, I'm not an engineer. I just thought, appearance-wise, it's more in keeping with other driveways and the sidewalks. But these are not ugly bricks at all. And presumably, as I read the specifications, there will be some sort of a stone dust that will be put in these cracks, so those little nubs, the spacers, won't be visible. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it gets a filler in there, and actually the reason why a lot of cities are going with this now is literally because it's much better for the environment.
Right.
Because it is allowing the water back in the earth as opposed to in all the drainage and the sewers and overworked systems like that. So it may in fact be, I don't know what happens down the road a little more commonly, but yes, that will be filled in. You will not see the nubs, and
and then one other comment, Jody. Also, I just wanted to say that I'm glad that Tara brought up the whole thing about the edge restraints, because I also noticed that and on page 6 of the regs and on 2.03 and 3.03, it talks about actually 3 different kinds of edging you can use: plastic, steel, or concrete curbing. And I would, echo Tara's concern: stay away from the plastic. And I'm wondering whether you can just simply use the granite that's in there now. I mean, it looks like the edging is something that is put down first before the other layers, and then it's kind of built into that little framework. So you have some beautiful granite edging right now. I'm just wondering whether that could be used instead of additional, yet another material introduced into the mix.
So yes, Joe, that is how I understood it, and I am going to follow up with that. My understanding was that that granite that's on one side is fine, and everything else that they spoke about, be it metal, which I'll get clarification on, is actually submerged. It is underneath when they dig out the 16 inches of driveway for the whole subsurfacing they need to do, that is where the edging will go to hold all that soil and gravel and what the layers that they put in. So that was my understanding, but I will certainly get more clarification that that will not be visible.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Bonnie, Kevin, do you have any questions for Jody?
Kevin, do you want to speak?
I don't know.
Okay, I just want to say that I really support the pavers, the permeable pavers. As Jody mentioned, they are more environmentally sensitive. They drain the water more directly and quickly. And given the concerns about the slope on this driveway, I think you'll be safer with them overall. I noted your comment because I am taking notes. Hope for the best. I don't think you really want to do that, do you?
No, not really. But I don't believe that we have the pitch we need. So at that point, it would be kind of, no, I don't really want to do that. So hence the application for this brick.
Yeah, I think so too. And as long as you've already considered the cost and that is not a impediment to you, I would strongly urge you to go with the pavers, all else being equal.
Thank you.
All right, I believe, Joe, and you're all set right now with questions. Joe?
Yes.
I guess the next step would be to vote on the application.
Well, what do we want to do about her coming back with the edging information?
Right, we do.
An open question. And if it turns out it's going to be something that we can't live with, then we may have to.
I think that if the edging is not visible, I don't really care what's underground, in a way.
I agree with Joe. If it's installed properly, it doesn't matter. It's not as though it's going to sit an inch above the edge line of the brick.
And this is Andy. Could I speak to that?
Please do, Andy.
Thank you. Sorry, just having seen these sort of installations before, generally speaking, the edge restraint is really only needed where there isn't already something there that can define that edge firmly. So because you don't want the bricks or the pavers to space themselves further out over time. Each brick basically holds another brick in place, and at the edge, you just need something there. So in this case, I think because of the granite and the retaining wall on those edges and the existing sidewalk, those are essentially going to provide that firm edge. You could, if you wanted to, you could approve with a condition that edge restraint, that's proposed be submitted prior to installation. But my guess is here that would not be necessary because the existing physical barriers on each side of the driveway would serve as that edge restraint.
Okay, thank you. And I believe that's probably the way to go, is to propose that we would approve this and vote on it with the understanding that we would gain more information on the edge restraint and whether it will be visible or not, if there is one needed. And we would certainly support the Boston City Hall bricks, I'm assuming, if that was a fallback, if there was a reason not to go with the pavers. Again, I'm a little unsure how to propose exactly the wording. I don't know, Bonnie, if you can help me with that.
Yeah, to do that. So the motion would be to approve resurfacing the driveway with the pavers and on the condition that if the edging is anything other than submerged and non-visible, that the applicant will return to us for further consideration.
Second.
Did you want to include, excuse me, did you also want to include in there, well, I think it's too much probably to include the alternate,
Okay,
the backup. We'll deal with that. So if they have to come back to us, that motion allows them to come back to us if there's something other than what we've approved tonight, and then we'll look at the alternatives. So let's just leave it at that.
Can I just ask a quick question to Andy? Did you mention something about, you seem to be somewhat familiar, about 1 inch above the surface? Did I hear you say something about that?
Typically, you'd see like less than a half an inch of anything exposed. So it'd be a very thin, you might even see like a 1/4 inch at most. It's
Okay.
really, like you said, it's really used below grade to hold the entire edge of the brick. But in this case, it's probably not going to be necessary because they'll butt the, as you see, the spacers in the brick are meant to just maintain even spacing between the bricks for the, sand or polymetric sand or anything else is put in there. So, basically that edging restraint would not really be visible above grade except for maybe a 1/4 to a half an inch at very most. And in this case, I wouldn't expect them to want to put it or need to install one.
Okay, so I just want to clarify with the commission that if there is a half an inch or something that, to that nature, that will not fall into the category of zero visibility. Is that going to be okay?
In other words, you're asking if it's a half an inch or
Yes.
less, you have to come back.
Correct.
Right, that's what I thought you were saying. I would say no, it's not an issue. But I don't know if the others think that that's going to show too much. I don't live there, so I don't have that view that you guys might
I
have.
mean, again, not being familiar, it's not clear how much half an inch. I mean, hopefully, like Andy said, it won't be needed because of the edging that's already there,
Okay.
except maybe below. I honestly don't know how much half an inch, if it was plastic, that doesn't sound like it would be good.
And my guess would be that the steel is probably used if it borders a lawn or something to keep grass or whatever growing into the brick somehow. So it's probably going to be some sort of a concrete edging material.
That the way it was explained was, yes, that it would not be showing and that nobody ever mentioned metal or plastic. So,
Okay.
but I'm happy to get more clarification. And I do think that we can agree that it will not be showing, except I can't guarantee at this point that there won't be a 1/4 of an inch or half an inch, but I'm happy to clarify that.
And I think the clarification will help us all, especially if it's not plastic or it's not, steel, it's something more natural. So that would help a lot, Jody.
Okay.
Bonnie, did you write down what you said or are you?
I said it earlier, so Kevin can make the motion. I've got it in note form.
All right.
Moved.
You need a second.
Second.
And then we do roll call to see when do we do the roll call and when do we do approval? Do the roll call
That's the
now?
thing. The roll call is the approval.
Okay. So Kevin proposed and Joe seconded. I approve the motion.
You have to just call our names and we'll say yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
I'm glad there's only 3 other people on this and not 10. So we're all in approval. Did I freeze or did Bonnie?
No, I'm writing and you carry on with the meeting.
All right, so
Thank you, Jody.
thank you, Jody.
Thank you, Commission. Thank you, everybody. Yes, thank you.
All right, so Jody, you will get back to us with what you find out, right? You or Carmen?
Yes, what is the proper channels in which to do that?
This is Andy. If you could submit that to the Office of Planning and Development through Caitlin Sullivan or Diane Bovair, they will make sure that it gets out to the commission.
Okay, great.
And then we can issue the certificate of appropriateness.
Okay.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Thanks.
So now we can move on to the next application, which is at 24 Prospect Street. I'm just trying to find that on my, that's Lisa Foley. And Andy, if you can find her Lisa's application, please. So it's on the corner of Fruit Street and Prospect, and I'm sure many of you know the property. And the proposal is to replace the picket fencing and the posts with the same style and materials, which is cedar, and here we go, and paint it white. So that's the edging on both Fruit Street and on Prospect Street. And also along the way, some other work on the windows. There's original windows, they'll be reglazed and fixed. I think we'll probably need some clarification as to what fixing means. And then the single car garage right now, I believe it's clapboard, we resided with cedar wood shingles. So that's the proposal. As far as I can see, there's nothing else shown. There's some photos of the windows and of the property and of the garage. So this is the property. This is from Prospect Street, looking at the house. And on the left-hand side, you can see the edge of the garage. You can see the fence, obviously, in front of the house. And then these are the windows from inside the house. Another window shot. And then I believe there should be a photo of the garage, and there's the garage, and it has siding right now that the proposal by Lisa is for cedar wood shingles. So Lisa, would you like to make some comments on your application, maybe clarify a little bit more the paragraph that we just read?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hello, everyone. Hello, the committee. Thanks for letting me speak with you this evening. Also with me, I've got my fiance, Eric Checkaway, on the call as well to add any commentary. Yep, so the primary objective was to make sure that we're doing proper maintenance of the fencing, which is in quite a state of rot. As are many of the clapboards on the garage. And so getting that fixed for the exterior projects, what simply means, replacing with existing exact style with the 4-sided posts and 5-inch balusters in red cedar, which will be then painted white. Then with regard to the garage, although it's not a historic a part of the property, we want to make it look more in tune with the character of the home itself. And in doing so, felt that putting some white cedar shingles would allow us to have a more appropriate effect than the like clapboarding that's there right now, which is probably from the 1930s or so, and a little bit of an eyesore at the moment. So from that would be unpainted. It would be cedar that is pre-treated to age and weather, as well. That the only other thing that we do would be to paint the trim on the garage, and that would be painted in the same white as the home. So that is the exterior work that's being done. Interior work, as referenced in the application with regard to windows, for the historic windows that are throughout the home, we are having the window lady in Amesbury provide reglazing. So they'll just basically do tune-up, what they refer to as their tune-up, which consists of reglazing of the window panes themselves, and then also putting in new flashing. They also have a blacksmith on hand that will match any of the push pins that are your stoppers. And I do have a couple that are not staying open and need to be propped open. So those will be fixed and replaced with matching materials for the same style stoppers. So The sashes and glazing and stoppers where there are some that are missing. I have a couple panes that have cracks. This is an example of one on the second panel on the top right. Has a little crack in it. So anywhere where there's a crack, she's going to replace that glass, I believe, or fix the glass.
These are all the windows on the, sorry, all these are the windows on the house, or just you redoing?
We are doing a total of 21 that are all the historic windows.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But you know, we're looking for some efficiencies. Many of them are stuck shut and inoperable, or you know, the roping and the pulleys are not working properly, or the stoppers are gone. So this will get everything in working order again, and will also hopefully help with a little bit of efficiency.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have any public comments? Anybody at the meeting who'd like to ask some, make some comments or ask some questions? And again, please state your name and address, even though maybe you've already done it before.
And Tara Searholm, if you'd like to unmute and speak to the board.
Hi, this is Tara Cedarholm. I'm at 20 Fruit Street. So basically, I'm really in support of this. I think it's terrific. You know, of course, everybody is excited to see the fence go back. And Lisa, I haven't met you, but if you're at all interested, there's actually a historic photograph of your house with a very different fence that is published in a book on the architecture of architectural heritage of the Merrimack. It might be a more complex fence than you want, but I'm totally in support of you replacing the fence with the existing of what it is there now. I did want to ask a question about the changing the siding of the garage. I looked pretty briefly at the historic report on the house, and I didn't see a date on the garage, and you're probably right, it's about 1930s. But I wonder about the idea of re-siding the garage with cedar shake, which it would maybe aesthetically be more pleasing to us, but I think that maybe the commission might consider whether that is actually violates the ordinance, which really talks about not kind of making, I don't remember exactly how it's placed, stated in the ordinance, but making kind of a movie set and a fakery and a kind of thing. I mean, I'm not saying I really love the way that garage looks now, and I'm not saying I love that siding, but I'm just saying that, you know, changing it to something that's not historically accurate is maybe not what the ordinance calls for. So I don't feel strongly about it. I'm just calling it to your attention. Thanks.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you, Tara. I know the photo that you speak of, actually. It has a crisscross sort of fence. That's, yes, yep, I have a photo of that. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. It's lovely. It's a little bit more intricate than I am interested in, but yeah, it was nice to see a different representation of the house.
And I see that Jody has her hand raised still. I'm not sure if that's just left over from the prior application. If you'd like to speak, Jody, or perhaps lower your hand if you're not interested in speaking on this particular application. Okay, thanks for clarifying. So I guess that's all the public comment, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Andy. So Lisa, would you like to say anything more, or do you feel you've pretty much covered everything you need to cover?
I think I've stated what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So no, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there's questions.
Okay, so now the commission can ask some questions.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Lisa, first of all, thanks for kind of going through this process, it's great that you're so detailed and thorough in your presentation. The images help tremendously. I think the fence replacement is fantastic. I noticed that you got a quote from Port Fence. I don't know whether you're going to use them or not, but they did our fencing along the side and back, and they're fantastic. They do a great job at a reasonable price. So you know, good luck with that. I mean, if that's approved. The windows, I think that seems to be kind of a no-brainer. We have similar windows. I know what you mean about propping them up. If you have any more of those little stops, send them down the street, because we could use them.
Plenty of sticks I can send your way once they're fixed.
We've had some consultations with the window women as well, and window woman, and it's a great operation. So I'm glad that you got together with them. Once again, I do share Tara's concern about the choice of materials for the siding. That kind of siding that's on there now looks very typical of all the one-car garages that were built throughout Newburyport. In fact, up and down the East Coast, when the automobile came in and these things were stuck there. It's not exactly a clapboard because they don't really overlap. They're kind of butted up against it. There's a good example just around the corner on 4 Fruit, painted orange in the back of the Roy's house. They're all over the place. And I think ideally it would be great to replicate that. I don't think that material probably isn't available anymore. I think probably the next closest thing would be clapboard rather than shingles, especially since there are no other examples of cedar shakes in the historic district. This would be the only example that I'm aware of. I may be wrong, but I checked, and you have to get over to Federal Street before you can start seeing some shakes, and usually they're on one side of a house, usually the weathered side. I also noticed in Section 14 of the guidelines, it talks about original siding material should be retained whenever possible, and deteriorated material should be repaired or replaced with new material the same as the original or duplicating it as closely as possible. Appropriate siding materials are clapboard brick, and on certain historical styles, wood shingles. I'm not an historic architect. I don't know whether cedar shakes is appropriate for a garage in a neighborhood of clapboard homes. But I guess my suggestion might be to go with the clapboard rather than the cedar shakes.
Okay. So it's interesting. We consulted with Eileen Graff on this project, and the builder and Eileen did a walkthrough, and she shared with me that it would be better to make it more of a carriage house type of a look, to tie it in with the clapboard home. And so this was a proposal that we thought would be something that would be appropriate. But I'm certainly open to feedback here, and that's of course the whole point, is to make sure that there's consensus. It's an important house. I'm happy to be a steward of it. And an example, although not historic, that I can point to as a reference of a reproduction Georgian colonial at 290 High does a wonderful job of blending the white clapboard with cedar shakes, and still maintaining a great look. So provided that this meets the criteria of the wood shingles that you just referenced, Joe, that was something that we were considering as part of our consultation with Eileen. But so I'll speak to that. That's all I can say. That's why we thought it would be visually more pleasing, making it more of a carriage house sort of a look, without being too over the top, but keeping it very simple.
Can I ask a question, Maurice?
Yes, please, Bonnie, please go ahead.
I'm not quite sure what the carriage house look has to do with the shingles versus the clapboard. Could you clarify that for me, Lisa, please?
Just that this looks more like an outbuilding in its current state, given that it was from the 30s, estimated at the 1930s. It's just an outbuilding. It's nothing of character that would look like it would tie into as a potential carriage house slash former livestock, barn or something that would have been near the property.
So the idea was actually to have it look different from the house.
No, to try and make it more congruous with the look of the house.
But how would shingles do that if the house is clapboard?
It's just an aesthetic. So it's simply a different way of putting it. I think, as to Joe pointed out earlier, these aren't true clapboards where they're stacked on each other. They're just they're spaced out. It looks a little rough and not as polished as the house. So it was really trying to aesthetically spruce it up.
So would you consider aesthetically sprucing it up, to use your words, using true clapboards?
It's certainly an option, of course.
From what I've heard of what those living on Fruit Street, or maybe it was just Joe who said it, it seems to me that the shingles would be a bit out of place, even though they work in other parts of the city. And that's one of our concerns on the commission, is that this little local historic district holds together, as it's been recorded in the study that created it. And so I'm leaning toward strongly recommending that you consider clapboard.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie.
Morris, it's Tara, and I still have the ability to unmute myself, and I know that public comments are over, but may I say something?
Okay, quickly.
I simply wanted to say that you can buy this siding now. Joe had said he didn't think you could,
Okay.
and you can. And it is 1930 siding. I believe you still can buy it, and I don't know why the commission is talking about putting clapboards on the 1930 building.
All right. Thank you, Tara. So going back a little bit, Kevin, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I don't at this point. Other than speaking to sort of Tara's comments about why we would want to replace, why we wouldn't want to replace it with the siding that's there. I think what we're trying to maintain is an historic district, and I don't think having 1930s cladding is really the look that we're going for. I think we want something a little bit more consistent historically. This clearly is not the look of that entire street. I think it sort of flies in the face of, what the ultimate goal was in trying to maintain an historic feel on that streetscape.
Okay, thank you. So I think I'm looking at the guidelines again, Joe, in a couple of sections. One is the one you mentioned about original siding material, be retained whenever possible. And then the one I think, Tara, you referred to, which said each property should be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding features or elements from other historic properties, should be avoided. I'm not sure that totally applies in this case, but I suspect that's the area, that's what you're referring to in the guidelines, or in the guidelines. To be honest, I'm not strongly moving in either direction right now, with whether we should go with the shingles, or whether we go with the current style or the clapboard. I don't feel strong enough about any. It does feel the shingles are, let's say, they're not found on the street, although they are found elsewhere in the city. So I really am not sure. I don't know, Bonnie and Joe, if you want to add some more comments. Now you're aware that we could replace it the way it looks without using clapboard. Is that a preference over anything else or not?
Well, I think, first off, let me say for the record, thanks, Tara, for letting me know that material is still available. I had no idea. I thought that went the way with the, well, I don't know what, but I guess if we follow the letter of the design guidelines, it's very clear what we should do, and it says deteriorated material should be repaired or replaced with new material the same as the original, or duplicating it as closely as possible. So I'm not sure there's a whole lot of wiggle room here if we really want to apply the guidelines.
And generally, that's kind of where I go to too, with decisions that are not clear cut or obvious. That the guidelines were put together for a reason, and it's our duty really to follow those guidelines unless we believe there's a good reason not to.
Are you able to share the on the screen right now the references that you were just for the guidelines?
Yeah, Andrew, can you find those? They are the design guidelines. They're on. I don't know if you have a copy in front of you, but they are on the website.
Yeah, sure. I'll pull them up in a second.
Okay, thank you.
And number 14, yeah.
So while he's looking for that, I think if anything, the goal is to make this to replace wood rot and not have it be a constant chasing game of replacing rotted wood siding, which was why I was having the builder come and I liked what he was proposing. I liked the idea that it was something that could age and not have to be painted constantly. As we all know, that's our greatest exterior maintenance. But if wood clapboard would need to be used as the material, if that's what the committee feels is appropriate, I would prefer it be of the same style as my house, not this 1930s stuff again, which really isn't in keeping with the actual historic part of my property.
Well, that's a good point. If I could just jump in again, that's the point, and I'm not quite sure whether these guidelines, the siding bit here refers to the original house, or it refers to all and sundry outbuildings that are part of the property. Is there any?
If you scroll up in the document, there is a small section. I saw that earlier too on where did it go? Additions, section 1, there's something additions, and there is it's not an addition technically, obviously it's separate from the
Right, it's not attached.
there was somewhere where I thought I saw something about outbuildings, number 3 outbuildings. And again, it doesn't totally apply because it's not a historic outbuilding, but it says existing historic outbuildings should be preserved, maintained, etc. And then new outbuildings, but it's not new, it's already there. So it's kind of like there's nothing really directly in here except for what Joe mentioned as in section 11. But again, that could probably most likely refer to the house. So
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that gives us some flexibility here. We're not talking about a major difference if we drop the idea of shingles and look at either a replacement of the original material or going with clapboard. So I'm tending to say if Lisa wants something that fits better with her house, and it certainly isn't going to destroy anything of major significance in the overall federal period and other periods represented, earlier periods represented on the street, I could think that we would be justified in approving the clapboard.
I mean,
Anyone else?
I would agree that clapboard or the way it looks right now is more appropriate than the shingles. Albeit I like shingles, but I guess that's not the point here.
I mean, is there a larger issue here that if there's a non-historic aspect of a house or outbuilding that gets run down, that needs to be replaced exactly as it was?
I don't think so. I think the intent was to preserve what was there as it exists today And once there was an opportunity to change it or update it, that is in keeping with the historic streetscape. So either you replace what's there or you do something more appropriate that speaks to the age and the period of the home.
Okay.
And to that sentiment, that's what my goal was. Rather than have it look like this 1930s outbuilding, I would like it to look more like my home.
I'm sorry, I know public comment's over. Can I just point out to the commission that this outbuilding you're talking about is nearly 100 years old now. So, you can make this decision and allow clapboards to go there, and I'm not going to fight you on it, but the idea that the building itself, because it's from the 1930s, is not historic is not really accurate. And if you feel it doesn't fit under the ordinance, I mean, I guess that's one thing, but the idea that you think it's not historic is not really accurate.
Let me clarify. It's not about it being historic or not, because I 100% agree with you. We are losing a lot of mid-20th century buildings because people think they aren't worth saving. This is a local historic district created around historic buildings of a much earlier period. And we know this garage had to be later because there were no cars or need for garages like this, maybe a carriage house, but not a garage when these houses were built. So it's not about it not being historic. It's about it fitting in with the historic district as such. And in this particular case, allowing the applicant to consider putting a siding on it that would have it fit better with the house and not detract from the district. The garage in and of itself does in fact have some historic value, but from the Fruit Street Local Historic District perspective, I would say that changing the siding is not going to make a big difference in this building. And it's just not a contributing structure to this particular district.
Right.
And I'd like to hear from other members what you think, commissioners.
Yeah, again, I'm going back to the design principles on the guidelines where it says each property should be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding features or elements from other historic properties, should be avoided. I guess in some sense, you could consider the whole property as a there's it's kind of a physical record of an old 18th century home, and then later on the horseless carriage came along and they built a garage, and so in some ways the whole property is a record as it's outlined here in the design principles. I don't know, I'm just having a hard time with this. I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just, it's a tough one.
And I agree, Joe. Again, the look right now, based on what you just, I mean, there's several sections in the guidelines that point to maintaining it the way it looks or similar to the way it looks, and whether it's replacing like for like or bringing in something like clapboards, which are similar but not the same, is probably preferred over shingles. Yeah, it's. Kevin, do you have any comments? I mean, I know you know, of the four of us, you're the one that maybe was leaning more towards being okay with shingles.
Yeah, I'm trying not to overthink it too much. I think, again, we're looking at, I think the house is the main structure here. And I think whatever we can do to highlight that house and minimize this structure is the goal. And I think whether we do clapboard or shingles, and I don't have a problem with shingles. I think once they silver up, it will somewhat disappear into the landscape. And I think it will integrate better with the house either with shingles or with clapboards, but I think the house will stand on its own once we sort of get this whole 1930s feel away from it. As you know, and again, it's all about integration into the main structure, which is that house.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, do you think we're ready? I mean, are we ready to vote on this, or it feels like we've not really come to a point where we're all in a, we don't need to all be in agreement, but at least we all feel comfortable with a vote. So what else do we need to do, you feel, to?
Well, we need a majority, so we need 3 out of the 4 to vote in
Right.
favor.
Is it worth pushing through the motion for the fence and the windows and maybe getting some more clarification on options for the shed?
Well, what
Whether-
other options would there be? I mean,
well, the material that,
I agree with Bonnie. I don't think there's any sense in waiting. We have 2 options. We leave it alone and replace it with what's there, which I don't think anybody is in support of, or we approve replacing the siding with either shaker, siding or clapboards, either one. And again, I don't think either one is a mistake. I think it's a win-win either way.
wait a minute. Did you say, what is the shaker? That's shingles?
The cedar shakes.
Yeah, cedar shakes.
No, I thought the option was, see, this is why we need to discuss it some more. I thought the option was to replace the siding with the 1930s siding that's still available, or with clapboard, but not shingles.
No, I think the application cider is cedar shingles, which is how it was submitted, or we go to clapboard, which would mirror the siding on the house.
But we've got new information that says there's a third option. We don't have to go with what the application is for. That's why we're having this discussion, right?
I don't think the question of whether it was an option was the issue. I think the application is the application. They're applying for cedar shakes, and somebody introduced sort of imitating what's on the main structure itself. I think those are our only 2 choices. I don't think there's any need to replace what's there.
Well, then just a question for you then, Kevin. How would you make sense of design guideline 18, where it does talk about replacing like with like? Or is that just for the house or for all buildings?
I think so. I think it speaks to the property. I think what we're trying to do is to integrate all structures so that they work well together. And I think this thing's like a buck tooth right now. It sticks out on its own.
Right.
And we're really trying to sort of integrate the entire property. And I don't think cedar shakes are a mistake. I think, again, once they start to take on a silver patina of their own, it's gonna disappear into the landscape, and the house will stand on its own as it was intended to be. And again, Joe, to your point, I think these are guidelines. I think nothing's etched in stone. So I think it really falls to us to sort of make sensible decisions about how we maintain the integrity of that historic district.
can we just clarify, are we talking cedar shakes or cedar shingles? Because
Same thing. Shakes and shingles are the same thing. In my mind, we're talking shingles and shakes are similar.
Okay.
It's semantics at this point.
Okay.
Kevin, thank you. I think you understand my vision. It is a buck tooth right now, and I'm trying to make it less of one.
That's a little crass, and I apologize for that, but that's sort of my go-to, description.
Bonnie.
Yeah. I don't think the cedar shakes works at all. There's no other example of it in the district. So if it's between that and clapboard, I'd go with clapboard, because then it fits in with the house.
And I'm not opposed to that. I think, again, we're speaking about integration here.
And my view is that you look at it now and it's kind of what we've got used to seeing. So in my view, it does fit in with the house right now. That's the way it's been for the last, number of years I've lived here. I struggle more with the changing to the cedar shake shingles than I do staying with something that is similar to what it is right now.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat that?
So I'm leaning more towards either clapboard or if there is the same material, although it sounds like we're moving away from that, the clapboard option over the shingles option.
Or shingles?
Not shingles.
Oh, not shingles. That's what I thought you said.
Sorry, I'm mumbling.
Or,
That's kind of where I'm leaning right now. Joe, I know you were leaning more towards, keeping it closer to clapboard. Are you still?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to note that, unlike most of these meetings, no one from the Preservation Trust has commented. And I would assume that if they had issues with the historic preservation aspects of this, they'd say something, but they're not. So I think we do need to listen to that expert opinion, which is not existent right now. And so we're kind of left to make our own sort of decision here. And I'm inclined to think that I could live with with clapboards going on the structure, and I guess less so cedar shakes, only because it doesn't really fit into the other historic. Even though it fits into the city, it doesn't necessarily fit into the other structures in the historic district.
so it sounds like from the look of my notes, everybody is leaning, if I were to say one option, it's toward clapboard. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I believe. These three of us are leaning more towards that, and I think Kevin, is fine with either.
Okay. So what I'm going to recommend, Morris, from a procedural point of view, is that you take a vote on the fence and the windows being repaired, and then do a separate motion on the garage. Okay?
Okay, that's kind of what I was trying to do earlier, get those two, basically.
Yeah, well, you gave me that idea. I just said what you had already said, but clarify.
So yeah, I'd like to propose that the fence, let me go back to, so basically go back to replacing the current fence with the same style and the same material, cedar, and painted white. And the original windows will be reglazed, and there will be work performed to repair some of the glass.
Well, excuse me, I don't think you need all that detail in the motion because it's in the application. That's why I wanted to keep this separate.
Okay.
Just say motion to repair fence and windows as stated in the application.
Okay.
I don't know that there's anything, if there is anything extra, we can certainly add it.
All right. Okay, so what Bonnie just said, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
And now roll call. Bonnie,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Evan,
Yes.
Morris, yes. So now we move on to the shed, or the single car garage, sorry, to be resided. And we are going to propose that it is resided with clapboard as opposed to cedar wood shingles. Do we have a motion?
I make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Evan,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Morris, yes.
Okay, so thank you for the committee for that feedback. I just want to be clear that I don't know what the cost for clapboards are going to be, so I may just simply be painting the existing structure if we're not proceeding with shakes, which we are not. So it may just be a paint job.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I believe that now means we've covered all the new business. I don't believe we have any old business that we were going to continue. There is something down in other business that we will review that we could argue is old business, but we're putting it under other business. Correspondence communications.
And Marisa and Bonnie, I apologize. This is Andy Port. When meetings are scheduled, we usually check the city calendar for conflicts. I just wanted to note, there is a ZBA meeting at 7, but unfortunately, there's also a prep meeting that Caitlin Sullivan, the staff planner, and I need to attend it around 6:15. So I hadn't actually anticipated your agenda would go this long. I don't know how much longer you're expecting to go, but hopefully not too much further, just so I don't have an
All right. Thanks for the heads up. I think probably another 5 minutes we can be done, maybe.
Okay, thank you.
I hope.
Tara had indicated she wanted to comment at the end as well.
Yeah, I was hoping under other business we
We'll
could
have to
bring
put that
clarity.
off. Let's just do the draft. Let's do the minutes. We have less than 5 minutes. I think we
Okay.
need to.
For the
Minutes.
approval- Yeah, minutes in the
Do we
previous
have a
meeting.
motion?
I have a motion to approve.
Who was the motion?
Morris,
Yeah,
Joe seconded.
Joe second. Now call roll.
Roll call,
Was there any
Bonnie.
discussion? Is there any
Bonnie.
discussion?
Yeah, any discussion on the minutes? I read them, they look accurate as far as I remember. Joe,
Okay.
so Joe,
Yes, approved.
Bonnie,
Yes, yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Morris, yes. And then the other business is review the notification letter. I believe it's pretty much final. I did notice if you can review it one more time, and then I will bring it down to City Hall to circulate to residents of Fruit Street. I sent it late today. I'm sorry. It was this afternoon. I sent it to all of you.
I'm sorry, but there's several edits in it that I wanted to make, and I'm happy to, we're not allowed to do this offline, so we actually have to do it together, but we don't have time to do it
All right.
right now. So I could send those to you and you
Yeah,
could.
this isn't,
For our next.
this isn't time sensitive.
No, it's been already a
Okay.
few months. So yeah, just send, if you can send edits to me and then I'll put them all together and then we can review it next meeting
Okay,
and we can have a meeting to review that. I have no updates. As far as-
and we'll save whatever comment Tara has for our next meeting because we don't have time for it now.
All right. So motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Bonnie,
So, yes.
Morris, yes. Joe,
yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank
Andy,
you
we got,
all.
Andy, we got you 6:15.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you kindly. We can check the calendars in the future. So thanks again.
No, thank you. And this was an unusual one. I don't think we've had two proposals in the same meeting. Maybe we have once, but not, this does not happen often.
Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks,
Good one.
everybody.